Hey guys, this is Ruckus Gaming coming at you with the final installment of the Slay the Spire Relic tier list. So, in this episode, we're going to be looking at the event-only relics. Unfortunately, there are a couple that are missing. They're not necessarily super important. We can still talk about them and mention them, but I think because they're, strictly speaking, negative in value, they were left off the tier list because they would clearly just be at the very bottom in F, but we'll get to that later. Without further ado, let's just jump straight into it. All right, first up is going to be Bloody Idol. This is a relic that you pick up from an event in Act 2 called Forgotten Altar. I'll show that in just a minute. And it gives you 5 HP of healing every time you gain gold. That includes gold from events. That also includes if you face looters and they steal gold which you recover. That will technically be counted as a second instance of getting gold. I'm going to place this firmly in the A tier. And I want to show you the event that it comes from very quickly. This is the Act 2 only event, Forgotten Altar, and there are a couple different ways for you to get this. If you have the Golden Idol relic already, you can simply trade it 1-for-1 with no penalty other than losing the Golden Idol. You can gain max HP, but also lose a significant amount of HP from your current total. So, for example, 25 or 35 above a 15, or you could trade it for a curse. Decay, simply take 2 damage at the end of your turn. Not the worst curse in the world, and I think that the amount of sustain that it offers you and the amount of times that you will be able to get value out of this relic is pretty good. I would say very nearly S tier, but I'm just holding it back a little bit. Either way, I think this is definitely a great relic for just about any character, any class, and any deck type. Getting a little bit of free healing while you're also getting money at the same time is always a good thing. All right, next up, we have the Enchiridion. We're going to skip over the cultist headpiece for just a moment until we get to the other face relics from that event. Enchiridion comes from the Cursed Tome event, which you need to trade HP for a chance at one of 3 relics, and Enchiridion will give you 1 free power at the beginning of each combat. I'm just going to throw that in C tier. I'll show you the event quickly. You're going to lose a total of either 16 or 21 HP above a 15, and you get the choice. You don't get a choice. You get one of these 3 relics randomly given to you. And if you don't want to take the book, you have to lose 3 HP regardless. Of course, you can always leave without losing any HP, but you will not get a chance to see the book. In general, I think you should be asking yourself, am I willing to lose 16 to 21 HP for one of these 3 relics? If you don't want to lose that much HP, if that's going to put you too close to danger and dying, just leave. Don't even go through the trouble of looking at the first. Actually, I don't even think you get to look at it. You simply lose 6 HP, and then you need to, again, choose to lose 10 to even see the book. So you don't even get to peek at it. So it's really just, do I have the ability to trade HP right now or not? And I'll say that Enchiridion is the one you don't really want in general. 1 free power per combat randomly is just not that great. Sometimes it can be extremely useful. Other times it's pretty pointless, which is, I think, the essence of C tier. It can help out, but it's not really reliable enough to always be providing great value to you. All right, next we have the Face of the Cleric relic. This comes from the Face Trader event in Act 1 or 2, and this is the best option that you can receive. of the 5 random faces you can get. This will raise your max HP by 1 after each combat. I'm going to throw that at the top of a tier. Let's take a quick look at the event. You can either lose HP to gain gold, which is kind of the go-to, especially on higher ascension. It's just too risky to take some of these bad faces. But of the 5 you can receive, 1 is completely neutral, Cultist Headpiece, the best relic in the game. Unfortunately, is not included on the tier list we have, so we cannot place it, but it is S tier. It makes you feel more talkative. Face of the cleric raises your max HP by 1 after each combat. Gremlin Visage starts you with 1 stack of weak. Nloth's Hungry Face means your next non-boss chest is empty, and Serpent Head gets you 50 gold for each unknown room you enter. Face of the Cleric is great because it triggers off of event combats, it triggers off of elite combats, it triggers off of boss combats. It's always giving you 1 HP every time you survive a fight. This will add up quite a bit over the course of a run. Unfortunately, it is just something that you don't often take the risk of the bad relics for the good relics. You're usually going to take the gold for the loss of HP. This is something you can heal back, so it's a very small penalty. The gold can be very, very useful if you're planning on going to a shop sometime soon. And these 2 bad faces are just, generally speaking, not game-breakingly bad, especially if you're lower than A15, but after A15, they are enough of a discouragement that you're just going to take the easy way and take the max HP for gold. So it's a great relic, but it's just one that I often never get a chance to really take, just because I'm not willing to risk those bad relics. Next up, we have a golden idol. This is from an Act 1 event, and this will give you 25% more gold from each enemy or from each combat that you pass. I'm going to throw that right up into A tier next to its brother, Bloody Idol. This is, of course, one of the prerequisites to getting Bloody Idol for a much easier, cheaper, and straightforward trade that you can get the Bloody Idol in other ways. For the Golden Idol, you can receive this in Act 1 either through accepting a curse injury. A very plain curse does really nothing other than mess up your draw. You can take damage according to your max HP, which is generally one way that I'm the most interested in paying for this, especially because I play Ironclad a lot. Though if you are playing something like Silent or Defect, you may want to save health. With Watcher's offensive output, you could probably also pay the damage to your HP pretty easily and not worry about it. If you are playing Watcher or Defect, or if you're just in general worry about taking too much damage too early on, you can also trade max HP, which is another very solid option. Many of the early on events may ask you to trade max HP for something, either from Neow at the start of the run or from several events. And this is, generally speaking, a very easy, low cost to pay for a decent relic such as Golden Idol. The 25% gold from each enemy can really add up quickly, especially if you are taking lots of combats. It'll snowball, it'll help you spend more money at shops to get more powerful, which just makes more combats even easier. Then it can be turned into this relic if you so choose. If you don't need the healing and sustain, you can just keep this and keep getting more money. There's really not a very large downside to this relic. I like it a lot. The next relic that is not on this list, unfortunately, is Mark of the Bloom, which comes from the Mind Bloom event. Mark of the Bloom is this purple swirly relic, and you can see that when you get this relic, it is now impossible to heal by any means. That means no healing through cards like self-repair or a bandage up, no relic healing, no campfire healing, no potion healing, no relics, nothing. 0. On the flip side, the benefit that it does give you is that it upgrades all of the cards in your deck. I think this can be something that you take obviously very late into a run. This is an exclusive Act 3 event. If you are very close, if there are no more combats ahead of you, especially if you are not planning on going into the heart, if you just want to finish Act 3 and get to the Act 3 boss with a fully upgraded deck, this can be a very low price to pay, actually. But generally speaking, I think most people will be taking one of the other two options. They're either fighting a Act 1 boss for a basically free relic, or if they perhaps have an Omamori or some way to quickly get rid of these curses, they can take the normalities. And furthermore, they could even just heal to full for a curse. So it's something that doesn't get taken often because it can be quite scary to deal with if you are not at the end of the act. If this is early Act 3, this could be something you really don't want to take a risk on, even for all those upgrades. But still a solid relic. Unfortunately, we don't have anything to put it with. It does kind of look like this, though. So let's put this right up in B tier. I think if you're at the right position with a full health bar already, this can be great for you. But other times, if you're interested in some healing, if you're relying on sustain, if you're always stalling out to use a self-repair or a feed or what have you, this is just not going to do anything for you. So very situational, but can be absolutely amazing. Next up is Mutagenic Strength. This comes from the Augmenter event, and this will give you 3 strength for the first turn of combat. I'm putting that straight into D tier. Let's look at the event, and I'll tell you why it's only D tier. Your other options in the event are to get the Jax card, which will allow you to lose HP to scale your strength, or it will allow you to transform 2 cards in your deck, which are just so much better choices. Unless you are doing some really, really narrow build, like a Whirlwind, turn 1 build with Akabeko and Necronomicon and bag of marbles for vulnerable, etc., etc. Turn 1 is great to have a buff on, but usually I'm looking more for like energy or cards on turn 1 than just strength. Many decks don't necessarily rely on strength to do a lot of damage. Obviously Defect has a lot of orbs that do his damage for him, so strength isn't going to matter that much for him. But in general, I think the choice of either scaling to lose HP or just in general transforming and getting rid of 2 strikes or 2 defense out of your deck for something that could potentially be so much better, these 2 options are just so much more valuable that Mutagenic Strength is not a common take for me. It's not something you're going to see in a lot of my runs because I'm usually choosing one of the other 2 options. Next up is Nloth's Gift, a very interesting relic which will triple your chance to see rare cards in the future. Very, very powerful. Rare cards are a great thing to have. Having more of them in your deck will make your deck much more powerful more quickly. Very big snowball effect here. Let's look at the event real quick. The interesting thing about this is that you are going to have to trade a relic you already have in place of this one. And you get 2 options. He will choose 2 random relics from your bar and ask you to trade straight up in exchange for his gift. This is how I'm going to be really determining its position on our tier list, because in some instances he can take something like the Neow's Lament, which has already been spent, or something like Maw Bank that has already been used up, or Wing Boots that have all their charges used up already, and they're bricks in your bar. They do absolutely nothing, and you can trade them for this gift and you can receive more rare cards, and that is absolutely fantastic. It could also choose some of the most key relics that are the most important to making your deck function, and you have been building around it the entire run, and if you don't have that relic, your deck is garbage, and this is really bad to have. So for that reason, I think I'm going to throw Nloth's gift, if I can find it again. Didn't already put it up there. I lost it. Where is it? Nloth's gift. That's going to be C tier. C tier. Dropping it down there. Next up is the Necronomicon, also from the Cursed Tome event, just like the Enchiridion. This is the second book we're going to talk about. This will double the first attack played each turn that costs 2 or more. And on top of the 16 to 21 health you will pay up front for this, you will also gain a permanent curse, which cannot be transformed or removed in any way from your deck. I'm going to put this in B tier. I think depending on the deck you are playing, this may be the exact book you are looking for. This could be great for playing a 2-cost attack twice and getting great value from it. Something like uppercuts, something like wallops, something like an X-cost card, like a skewer will get played twice if you play with more than 2 damage. So it's very versatile as long as you are playing a deck that relies on doing physical damage and doing it with a 2-cost attack card or several of them. The curse itself is not the end of the world. I don't generally like to take on curses if I don't have to, but I think the power that this book can give can be worth it in the long run if you have a deck that is built for it. And I think most of the time that is true. Next up is Neow's Lament. This is one of the relics that you can start off with from floor 1 at the beginning of each run, and it will give you 3 1 HP combats. S tier for sure. By design, this is made to be an extremely strong relic. If you think about it, you can get this most often from ending your previous run before getting to the Act 1 boss. If you die before you get to the first boss, this will always be one of your choices, though it can also pop up normally, even if you do get past the Act 1 boss, just from the random rewards that Neow does offer. 3 1 HP combats means you're getting at least 3 card rewards for free. If you can squeeze those in before a fire, before an elite, you get into that first elite with full HP, and you get an upgraded card. Perhaps you also squeeze in a shop or an event or 2. So this is a great boost to early runs. It stops you from dying to, Gremlin Knob because you've taken chip damage and you've gotten bad card rewards. Well, at least maybe if the card rewards aren't great, you're at least able to survive Gremlin Knob with your HP pool. So gives you better chances for starting off strong, and if you don't get the cards you want, you'll still be better able to survive longer based on the HP saved from free combats. Obviously, very, very strong relic. Next up is the final Cursed Tome event, and this is Nilry's Codex. At the end of each turn, you will shuffle 1 random card of your choice from 3 into your draw pile. This is S tier. This is amazing. I love when I see this. This is a great bonus to any deck because of its versatility. If it doesn't offer you anything you can make good use of, you can choose to skip, and you cannot add fluff to your deck. Because of the randomness, it allows you to get cards that may fit any situation. You can use these cards to slim your deck. You don't need to take as many cards because Nilry's is constantly feeding you new cards all the time. After every turn, you're seeing lots of cards, so you don't need to rely on your core deck being the only cards that you need to work with to be successful. Very, very powerful. Love it. Always happy to see it. That's what I really want to see most of the time, though Necronomicon can all be good. Next up is Odd Mushroom. This comes from an event that you can see in Act 1. If you opt in for the combat against 3 mushroom parasites and you win, you will be granted this specific relic and no others, which reduces the damage you take when you are vulnerable down to only 25% extra from 50% extra damage. I'm going to throw this at the bottom of A tier. I think this is great for reducing the penalty of vulnerable. It's essentially blocking. It makes vulnerable much less dangerous than it is. I think it's probably the most dangerous debuff that you see in the course of a combat or the course of a run of Slay the Spire. Taking extra damage is really, really bad and hard to overcome if you can't out-block or out-sustain it. And this is a great way to reduce that penalty. The downside is you do have a kind of tough combat against 3 of those fungi beasts. Sorry, not mushroom parasites. Fungi beast. The little rat friends with the mushrooms growing out of them. Not terribly high HP, but they will make you vulnerable when they die. And there's 3 of them, so you need to be able to do pretty quick AoE damage to 3 enemies. Most of the time, I think you're willing to be able to attempt that, as opposed to taking the other option, which is heal 25%, but with a curse. Again, this curse can be removed, but it will cost you a little bit of max HP. Not the end of the world, but unless you're really, really hurting for that heal, unless you think that you're going to die very, very soon if you don't take a heal, maybe you've got the elite or the act boss coming up soon, then you might take the curse. But generally speaking, I think most people just take the fight and try to kill the rats with AoE as quickly as possible. Either way, very strong relic. Next up is the Red Mask, which you can actually get from 2 different events. One by either fighting the 3 thieves, or you can pay all of your gold for it. I will put this in the middle of B tier. I think weakening our enemies is great, but really this is most useful for artifact removes on bosses, which can be very annoying if you've got, you know, a terror in your deck, or you've got poison or something like that, and you're trying to apply debuffs to bosses and you're wasting cards to removing artifacts. Feels very bad. So I like this a lot just for removing artifact charges from enemies quickly. I think if you get the Masked Bandits event, you're clearly always going to be fighting to save that gold. You're never going to want to pay any gold to get this because you can get it for free. It's not a terribly hard fight, but if you're already in a bad place, if you're close to dying, it can overwhelm you. That being said, if you get it from the other event, the Tomb of Lord Red Mask, this only gives you the chance to put on the mask for gold, or you will lose all of your gold to obtain the mask. So if you have it already and you get this event, you will get gold, which is really nice. If you don't have it, then you will either choose to lose your gold or get nothing. And I think that depending on where you are in your run, if you've got a lot of gold, if you are planning on hitting a shop, if you have a specific use for it, you would probably say, you know what, I might skip this relic. I know what it does, but I'm not going to pay X amount of gold for it. You know, if you've only got 100 gold, sure, why not? 100 gold is a pretty good price to pay for a decent relic. But if you've got 300, 400 gold and you want to go to the last shop in the act before you hit up the boss, then I would say probably no, not a strong take. Next up we have Serpent Head, the other positive face from the face trading event. This will give you 50 gold every time you enter an unknown room. I'm putting that in C. I don't have really great, strong feelings about this. It could probably be even lower, maybe even D. I think it is reliable in that you are always getting the same thing, no matter what. You know, it's not like the random reward from Enchiridion that can be very useful or very not useful. There's always the 50 gold. You always know exactly when you get it. But unknown rooms are also not the #1 priority when making your pathing choices. You're much more concerned with elites. You're much more concerned with campfires. You're concerned with shops. You're not going to really min-max how many unknown rooms you're taking just because of this. 50 gold isn't that much. You're not really going to be choosing to avoid combats excessively just to pick up an extra 50 or 100 gold. You'd probably still rather have the option of taking combats, getting potions, getting cart choices, also still getting some gold that you can spend at another shop. Events can be pretty bad on occasion, so you don't always want to be just taking all of the events. So for those reasons, I'll give it a C. I think it provides a small, constant benefit that you're not necessarily going to plan around, but can provide some value over the course of a run. Last up is Warped Tongs. At the start of each turn, upgrade one random card in your hand for the rest of combat. I'm going to throw this right up at the top of B tier. If we look at the event, we'll see this can happen any time in a run, any act. If you want to get this, all you need to do is pay for one curse. Now, this is a pretty bad curse to have. I think if you get it in your deck, you want to immediately remove it. Going to the next possible shop and getting it out should be a top priority. If your deck has other ways of dealing with curses, perhaps exhausting, perhaps lots of draw and discard, that may also make it easier to take. If you've got an Omamori, if you've got Duvu dolls or other things like Darkstone Periapt, which interact with curses, this can be a little easier to take. It's also much better early in a run. If you've already got a lot of upgrades that are on your most important cards, it has a little less value. This likes decks that spend more time in combat. The more hands you see, the more upgrading it will do, and the more value it will offer. If you're ending combats as quickly as you can, you know, turn 1, turn 2, crazy Watcher, Divinity, Ragnarok nonsense, then this is not going to provide a lot of value. That can be another thing worth considering. But overall, one curse, again, is not the worst in the world. If you get it early, you can definitely build more towards its benefit. You can spend more time pathing away from fires if you're not going to use them for healing. This means you'll also be using fires less for resting, perhaps giving you a chance to take more elites over fires, maybe hit up more shops instead of worrying about whether you're getting enough fires or not. Very, very solid value for a reasonable price, I would say, though you do want to get that curse out as quickly as possible. It'll set you back, you know, not removing one strike. Not the worst in the world. You may have a deck that can deal with it already anyway. Very solid value, so I put it right at the top of B tier. All right, that is the Relic tier list for shop relics. I think a little hard to make very strong opinions about some of these because they are so niche and there may be not a lot of chances to take them, especially thinking of Face Trader and Mutagenic Strength. Maybe it's just my play style, maybe it's, you know, my risk assessment, but sometimes the other options that provide or are provided when given the opportunity to choose these just means that I usually take the other thing instead of these relics. So I may not always see them a lot, don't always have very good first-hand experience or strong feelings about them, but this is my gut feeling. Let me know if you disagree, if there's something I'm missing or not understanding the true value of. Let me know in the comments. Drop a like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll keep the fun videos coming on Saturdays, and next up for our Tuesday tips and tricks, I want to start doing more general guide type videos, tips and tricks, beginning guides, things to know, such as that. So thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching to the end, and see you next time.